Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of All Things Crime. Man, I'm excited to be here. And I'll tell you, over the past year especially, it seems that, I don't know if child abuse and sex trafficking and all these kind of just absolute, it's just inhuman, some of the things that are happening, especially to children. And we've had numerous guests and episodes on this kind of thing, all the way from sexual assault detectives to the executive producer of The Sound of Freedom, a new movie about child trafficking, especially through Central and South America. And today, I have two guests on that I'm super excited about. And I want to introduce them using a video from their website. And this video kind of describes a little bit about who they are and what they do, and then we'll expand on it. So welcome to the show, Cookie and Nytro, but I want to start with your video because it's just such an amazing video. So here we go.
What do I get out of BACA? Wow. The knowledge knowing that I've done something that no one else can do. And that's to give a child their life back.
BACA is probably the only organization that can do what it does that exists in the world right now.
The goal of BACA is eventually to break the chains of child abuse, so these children don't grow up and bring what happened to them into their relationships.
First found out about BACA through my counselor, and she said that we should look into this, that BACA was a group of bikers who help and they support kids who've been abused. Before the abuse, I do remember like a happy, just normal life.
Rhythm was very carefree. She was loving and fun.
When I told my mom, she talked to me for about an hour.
She came in and she said, I'm being abused and I want you to know I don't want it to happen anymore. I want it to stop.
My extended family didn't think my story was true. They thought a lot of it was made up. I had night terrors. I was seeing like 2-3 counselors. That was partially why my counselor informed us about BACA.
Level 1 is the first interaction that the child's going to have with the entire chapter. It's where we bring that child in and make them part of our biker family.
Leading up to the night of my level 1, I was kind of like not sure what to expect. All I knew is that there was going to be a lot of bikers at my house in the morning.
When a child's been brought into BACA, and we decided that it's a case that fits our mission, we as the chapter as a whole will ride off to wherever the child feels safe at to meet. That means the whole chapter goes. Everybody's had a background check for bride.
There's a little bit of a ceremony that goes on with it. The child's reminded about the initial contact where everything is explained to them, what BACA is, what we do, what we don't do.
We present them with a vest, and it has a patch on the back of it and their road name, and it just makes them feel part of.
They get assigned two of the members as primaries. Those members are on call for that child 24/7 around the clock.
Peppermint, would you like to meet your primaries now? We have Rembrandt and Lucy. Rembrandt and Lucy have always been here for me, and now BACA will always be here for you.
Hi, Peppermint. I'm Lucy. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Peppermint. I'm Rembrandt. It's nice to meet you.
Seeing this like group of adults, bikers, like being so kind, not even bringing up what happened to me, just saying like, hey, we're here for you, like we're your new family. It meant the world to me.
The level 1 is probably something that is the most empowering part of what we do, because we see a huge change in these children. After about 40-45 minutes, those kids are interacting with our members. In some areas, they go for rides with the membership. They take them on a short ride around the neighborhood.
They looked at her like she was just another amazing young kid.
We're just there just to empower them, to show them that there's people out there that really care about them, and that they're becoming part of our family. And then when they become part of our family, that we have their backs.
When there's a court case, if the judge allows us, we will escort that child to the courthouse. A lot of times when kids go to court, the family members of the perpetrator will show up and they try to intimidate that child.
Carry me home when the light in my eyes does fade. Carry me home when the shadow comes to take me away. Lay down my bones, knowing I'll be in a better place. Release my soul, carry me home. Carry me home, there's a sour down in the ground. Carry me home, don't you weep for right and freedom bound. Lay down my bones, there is peace within the light I found. Release my soul, carry me home.
Are you scared?
No,
You're not?
my friends are a lot scarier than he is.
Carry me home when the light in my eyes does fade.
When I see these kids, the light come back into their eyes, I get more out of BACA than I could ever put in.
Standing up for child abuse is probably one of the bravest things somebody can do.
You see them after we get involved, and their self-confidence is beaming. They're doing better in school, and they're not afraid anymore. And that's what we do. We give them their life back.
I grew as an individual. I joined clubs in high school. I became varsity captain of the cheer team. I was a vice president. I'm going to college. I owe that to every single person in my life, especially BACA, who stood by me and who supported me and said, it's okay to be scared. We're here for you until you're not.
Nobody gets paid in BACA. Everybody's volunteer from the president down.
We, my brothers and sisters, will do whatever we can to make sure that they feel safe. And when we do that, they can trust again and they can start being kids again. That's what I get out of BACA.
Everything on this patch means something. The white is the innocence of the child.
The red is the blood that's been shed.
The black represents the dark times that that child is going through.
The skull and crossbones is death to child abuse.
The fist is our commitment to fight child abuse. And the chains on this patch stands for one BACA, one united nation. This patch means everything to me. This is my family.
If you are being abused, if you are scared, tell somebody.
Okay, so I'd say that video just always says it all. But again, welcome to the show, Cookie and Nytro. I know you guys are out of Arizona, and just so honored that you would come on to the show. So welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. We really appreciate the opportunity here.
Of course, absolutely. So, Bikers Against Child Abuse is the name of you guys' organization, and BACAworld.org is the website. So, I strongly encourage all of the listeners to go to BACA World, BACA world.org, and see some of the things that you do. You can watch that full video and also just kind of get a flavor for what these guys do. But I'm embarrassed to say that prior to connecting with you guys, a month ago, I'd never heard of it. So I'm super glad to be able to, have you on today as guests and to, expand the base a little bit of, from my listeners and the viewers. We broadcast this both on YouTube as well as all Spotify and all the other platforms. And also, by the way, encourage everybody to subscribe and share this message, because what you guys do is amazingly important. And I think there is far too many children. What people don't understand is our children are our future. And even if you're in your 20s and you're watching this, there will be a day when, you got gray hair like I do, and you're going to, your kids are buying you glass. I don't know if you can see this. It says Old Lives Matter. That's what I got for my last birthday. So, my kids are even in on it, and they're just hammering me with, Dad, you got to start coloring your hair, man. But I keep it short color. It just doesn't.
Well earned.
Yeah. So, Nytro, let's start with you. Could you kind of introduce us to the BACA organization and kind of how, what your mission is and just kind of how the organization came about?
Absolutely. I am Nytro. I'm with the Maricopa County chapter here in Arizona. BACA started back in 1995. The founder was a licensed clinical social worker and a registered play therapist. And he was working with children that were making some incremental changes. But what would happen was either the person that abused them or the family members would go by the house and harass the child, and the child would shut down. And, he was just tired of seeing that. So he, got a few of his buddies together and said, we need to stop this. We need to do something about it. He has since retired, and we are continuing his legacy. And, it started in Provo, Utah, and now we're in 22 countries, working at Costa Rica, Romania, and Portugal. And we're not going to stop until, we reach more and more kids. Unfortunately, in my lifetime, we're not going to reach as many as we want to, but doing these podcasts is what helps us. I've been around for almost 28 years. We are in 46 states here in the United States. I think it's Mississippi, Wyoming, and not Wyoming, one of the Dakotas, I can't remember, Delaware and Hawaii. And we don't have chapters, but we're working on those. Some of the states surrounding those, except for Hawaii, it'd be a little difficult. We'll go and help a child. We'll ride 800 miles. It doesn't matter. The child is in need. Enough is enough. We're going to help them out. We go to court with them to help them stand up and give their impact statement. We're here to empower them, not enable them. We're not big brother, big sister in the sense of taking them shopping, things like that. We're that shadow. So when you need us, we're going to be there. We get a phone call, we're at their door. We're helping them out, whether they're frightened or family members of the perpetrator or the perpetrator themselves are trying to come to the house. You're going to see us. We've had enough. But in court, it's very scary for them. It would be scary for me as an adult. We don't want what happened to them to define them. And it's like you said, Jared, they're our future. And, if we can't get them there safely, what does it say about us? So, a lot of these kids end up on the streets and drugs and gangs and the sex trafficking, they lure these kids. And yeah, enough is enough. We have to wake up to this. People turn a blind eye, and you got to open up your eyes. Just because it might not be your child, what if it was? Then you'd want somebody to step up. So then you need to step up for another child.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well said. And I think it's one of those where, how do I even say this? What you said about it may not be your child, but if it's somebody even in your community that is being abused, that is affecting your child, and it's affecting you indirectly. And, Cookie, I wanted to ask you, is there a particular child or a particular story that kind of started this? That, there's a legacy behind every child that's, that's being abused. Is this mostly, do you focus mostly on like foster care, or is it just any child that feels in danger?
So, we work with a variety of different agencies, foster care, Department of Child Services. We work with local and state agencies that are already in place helping abused children. But we really have three simple requirements for us to actually get involved. And it comes down to these three things. Is it a verified case of abuse, meaning that there's a police report or a counselor statement that says, yes, this child has been abused? Is the child living in fear, which is, again, a counselor or an adult or someone that can verify that? And then, the third thing is that whoever did this to them, the perpetrator, doesn't live in the same house or facility that the child is in right now. Those three things are in place. We are a free resource. There's no cost to these families or children to have us come in. And, we're able to empower them by doing one thing, showing up. We show up, we stand behind them. And just like I'm there for Nytro, and Nitro's there for me. If she called me at 2:00 in the morning and said, hey, I need you, I'm not asking what, I'm not asking why. I'm hopping on my scoot and we're there. So we give those kids a sense of that empowerment, bring them into our family and let them know that no matter where they go, near or far, BACA is there for me. My sisters are here for me, and BACA is now going to be there for you.
Yeah. Wow. How many kids can I think of just in my immediate circles, and kids that I've heard of? And I don't know if you guys know what I do for my day job, outside of the podcast, but we help collect DNA off of evidence. And a lot of times I'm working with detectives and crime scene analysts that the victim is very often either a woman or a child. And it's just sickening, the increase in, you would think as we become more and more, quote, quote, civilized, that this kind of stuff would taper off. We'd become more, better at treating each other as equals and everything else, and not abusing each other. But for some reason, it just seems to be getting worse. And especially the targeting the children. It's, to me, I don't know, as a man and a dad of 5, it just doesn't make any sense to me how people can like look at a child and, think of it, just view that child as a piece of meat that they can, abuse in sexually or otherwise. And to me, I'm sure that's the same passion that you guys have. And again, talking with you prior to this and seeing the video and doing research on your organization, I think everybody that belongs to and does what you do, whether they're contributing or whether they're actually getting on a bike and physically going somewhere to help a child, everybody is contributing to help overcome this fear that these kids live in. And it just seems that there's more and more households that they don't have a stable environment. And is there any kind of a insight that you guys have as to why that's happening?
I think a lot of it has to do with the laws need to change. When my daughter's best friend's baby was brutally beaten to death, brutally beaten to death, he was only 8 months old. He couldn't find off anything. He got 18 months in jail and 3 years supervised probation. What is wrong with our system that allows these people back out on the street? And, it's the technicality or whatever it is. I don't know, but it's really frustrating. We've been to court many times where there was enough evidence, but for some reason, this person doesn't get what they deserve. They get minimal time, and we have to look at this better, for our kids, because, when those perps or whatever get out of jail, that kid's back in fear again that they're going to come and retaliate, and it shuts our kids down, and it's got to stop. Our laws have to change. I can't tell you how many times we've been in there, and it is frustrating. A lot of people ask us, how can you do it? And I ask, how can you not? How can you not go to court with these kids and help them stand tall? It just a lot of things just need to change. And a lot of it is the law. Years ago, it was a family issue. We heard stranger danger, but unfortunately, a lot of these kids are getting abused by family members or friends of the family. They know how to groom them. They know how to get to them. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that our system doesn't protect our children better. I knew back in the day that people, got caught cultivating marijuana or did more time or life, but you can kill a child and that's what you get. We're so backwards that that's what we need to fix. And society, both parents have to work. It's tough. You want to have a family, but then you're away from the family because things are rising and you're working 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. My husband works hard. I work 2 jobs, plus BACA, and it's time consuming. I can't even have a dog because I'm not home enough. So think about the ones that have children, it's really tough and frustrating. We are humans, but when you abuse a child as your outlet for being frustrated in any manner is no excuse.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Cookie, you had something to add?
Yeah. I mean, you also look at, we've got some cases that they get drug out so long. I mean, you're talking year, 2 years. And you think of, okay, someone could go in for something like a speeding ticket and they're only cared about $500. And all of a sudden that happened on Monday and you're in court Thursday paying your ticket and you're done and out of the gate. Yeah. You get someone that's his perpetrator and they're giving him every single privilege and right of due diligence, given the heinous crimes. Sometimes they're not even locked up until they have a conviction. And so, with these cases that are going on, it's like we need, like she said, it's like stricter policy around when these cases come up. Why is this guy still on the street being able to harm and offend continually while they figure it out? I think, again, it comes down to the policy and that, you look across the board right now, we have a lot of resources dedicated to, internal policy and review. We have more resources looking at the policies and how police operate versus actually, investigating the police instead of investigating crime. There's just the nature of, the past year and a half, 2-3 years of everything. And I think we've put more resources into making sure it operates correctly versus actually finding the criminals and taking them off the street is what it seems like.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.